I have no problem playing by your rules, but if your rules are fucking unreasonable, what am I to do with that? You got a lot of like pro Bitcoin or pro cryptocurrency politicians, who will go in, championing, with the laser eyes, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get a Bitcoin reserve, and and then they come out, they come out of the machine a couple of days later, like, we're gonna get a crypto reserve, right? I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. When when I was not a Trump supporter, I'm really not a Trump supporter, but I mean, when I wasn't very adamant, folks would misconstrue that. Well, you must like Hillary. Like, are you stupid? Because I don't. Because I've known the character of Trump, throughout the years. I immediately like this other person who's also a scumbag. What are we doing here? What kind of conversations are we having?
Welcome to the Bitcoin broadcast. Today we have on Killer B. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. How are you doing today, man?
I'm awesome, man. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I've been I'm a fan of the Bitcoin broadcast. So
Awesome.
I've got to see some pretty cool people. Some folks that I only know from from a screen, and I've gotten to see and hear them. Aside from just some posting and some comments, get pretty real. So I'm excited to be involved.
Well, I appreciate it. Do you just want to give a little background of who you are? You don't have to say anything specific, but just kind of your background in Bitcoin, how you came to it, how you arrived on it, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'm Killer B. I'm a member of the Bitcoin Army. I'm just some guy, right? No, I mean, I've been involved. Wow, we're coming up to a year now with the Bitcoin Army. Yeah, roughly. I guess the start of the new year, roughly. But I mean, that started in December, and I came somewhere. I want to say in the end, like closer to January, right? But yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I host a space on Wednesday nights. It's called Crime Watch. The intention is really to just kind of make people aware of just messed up stuff, right? It's not exclusive to actual law, a criminal or contract or otherwise. It's more so just, watch out for bad actors. Watch out for people with bad intentions, follow incentives, that sort of thing. So that's sort of something that I sort of bring to the social media scope in terms of like awareness. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about. But yeah, I mean, I mean, how I came to Bitcoin, I'm a parent, and for years, just trying to keep the ends met, trying to make them meet, just, going through all of the motions, the obstacles of, raising some, another life. And, at some point I was really, trying to figure out why it was so difficult rather than just accepting, oh, it's tough out there for everybody, right? But it just seems like exceedingly so over time, right? And it didn't sit right with me. So over time, I just started looking at like, okay, well, what do other people do to increase, their standing in life, right? And that kind of led me to investing, right, which made sense. Instead of keeping your the assets that you want to sort of store and save, right, in a bank where you're only getting a certain percentage, back, for your trouble of storing, your wealth with them, right? Well, other folks will, invest in companies and businesses and market sectors, right? And so, I started paying attention to markets, right? Before there was Crime Watch in my world, there was Market Watch. And that kind of led me to the sector of cryptocurrency, right? And so I was kind of doing my homework there. And it was a very vast world. I mean, all of these worlds are vast worlds, right? You've got your health sector, your entertainment sector, you've got all these different kinds of things that you can financially be involved with. You can ascribe to whatever, for just for number go up reasons, for, something that you're very passionate about and that sort of thing. Like, I mean, just stupidly, my daughter and I, we play games. It's one of the things that we do when we're kind of just connecting and having fun. So, I bought stock in like Nintendo for a while, you know what I mean? Like just, as a sort of passion project. Right. And anyway, eventually getting into sort of going back to the cryptocurrency thing. So I noticed kind of very early on that, it was a casino. I mean, it's really the best way to, without getting too involved, right? With the exception of Bitcoin. So in my head, it really became like, number one, the house always wins. Number two, anytime that you're getting into these sort of cryptocurrency projects, you are not the house. So you're not going to win. And the one thing that I did notice was that Bitcoin was the one project where we are all the house and therefore we all win. So it was very easy early on for me to sort of spot the whole trying to be a little more passive, the casino coin aspect of things and how cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are not exactly synonymous. Just Bitcoin just happens to fall under the category of cryptocurrency. And since the inception, basically made it so there wasn't really a need for any other cryptocurrency. So, all the other stuff that goes on is just pointless. And watching the rest of the world kind of, ape in at one point or another just seems rather nonsensical, but I get it at the same time. So, and I guess really I think that kind of takes care of all. I mean, myself, I'm also a writer, a musician at certain points in and out of my life, right? It's a big passion of mine. Words are a big passion, education, knowledge, these things are very important to me. I'm very big on the arts. Very early on, I was into film. A couple of my first jobs were just like, video stores, movie theaters, that kind of thing. Um,
Awesome. No, you said something really cool there that I haven't heard anyone else say. You said cryptocurrencies are, the house always wins. And so when you're investing in all these shit coins, it's a casino. And sure, you might be able to win like, maybe 30% of the time. But then you said Bitcoin is the house and we are all the house.
yeah.
Can you expand on that? Because that was kind of interesting. I've never heard someone explain it like that, like how we're all Bitcoin.
Yes. I do. I like to. I like to lean into the side of myself that's a little more inclusive, so to speak, and really, kind of discuss rational ideas and things like that. But the other side of me just really loves shade. When people are just like shutting other folks down, just right the fuck away because they're coming from a point of just a nonsensical argument. One of the things that I really liked seeing, and I don't remember who it is, so forgive me for not giving credit where it's due. But somebody was espouting, their particular blockchain and all the great things that it does. And it was immediately met with something like, well, how many nodes does this program run? How many people are doing the accounting, securing the network, really doing the work outside of like, hey, buy this coin on social media? I don't believe there was a response. With Bitcoin, you don't have that, right? So the whole idea with Bitcoin is that the accounting is done every 10 minutes, right? Or however fast a block is. So to the average rate, 10 minutes. And we are all the accountant. There's nobody else. There's no one authority saying this is the exact tale of the tape. It's everybody verifying it. It's all of us. Everyone is accountable. So if you're in this project, you are not just the one person tending the lighthouse. You are, one of many all across the world, to the point where this thing cannot just be, this thing just can't be attacked with energy that wouldn't come at an astronomical cost. And the point of that is just, you may as well not even bother, right? You're not going to get that with some other, and I'm honestly, I'm glad that you did it. I got sort of, I have this habit of making other people do it. You said shitcoins, so now I feel I'm okay to say shitcoins.
Yeah, yeah.
But you see these other shitcoins and the way that they come across, and it's all marketing. That's all it is. I mean, what do you have? XRP has this whole marketing team because it can't carry on its own. It never will, and I think it's not just because it can't, but it's also because the creators don't believe in it enough. So they have to go the marketing route. They have to pay for they have to pay to play because it doesn't stand on its own otherwise. And even still, it doesn't really stand on its own. I mean, it's going to fool some people, right? It's going to fool, some guy who walked in like I did and didn't really, pay that much attention and just say like, oh, okay, cryptocurrency. Oh, wow, XRP and all this stuff. And like, they'll see the Bank of America is going to be using XRP and they're going to believe that shit. And you know what I mean? And they're going to get wrecked. And that's why I do things like Crime Watch, because I don't want folks doing that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, wait, before you walk into that, just make sure you're Just take the money out of your wallet. That way, when they lift your wallet, there's nothing in there, right? Take your ID out and stuff it in a place where they're not going to reach their hand, because you're going to get fleeced. So
Yeah, no, that's a absolutely. I mean, that's what's really cool about Bitcoin is there is no marketing team, there's no CEO. There's no one to be like, "Hey, we're going to spend $300 million this year on marketing Bitcoin." It just grew organically, and every other shitcoin just has a massive marketing budget. And then the funny thing is, you always see like the CEOs or the creators of these coins that come up, they end up once it pumps, they sell all their coins and they buy Bitcoin with it. So it's like, doesn't that kind of register to you that they actually don't give a shit about their own coin? They're
yeah,
literally just pumping it to sell it to buy the real thing, which is Bitcoin.
it's my biggest suspicion of Peter Schiff, and this has shown up in a lot of places. But I really do believe, like, you can purchase his his paper his paper gold voucher and put your belief in that if you like, right? But you can purchase that with Bitcoin. He will take your Bitcoin. And now he says he's converting it to fiat before doing all this. But I mean, I personally believe that, and I don't know for sure, but I think that, if he's willing to accumulate Bitcoin and give you magic beans for it, I feel like he's on a grift all his own. Like, I suspect him of a lot more than what he purports himself to be.
I think he holds more Bitcoin than he leads on. I think he's actually been buying for a while. And I think his son got him into it, even though he said he like had some a long time ago, and he lost it or something, and now he just accepts it. But I'm like, dude, he totally has Bitcoin. We all
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, I lost tons of mine too. I go boating like at least once a year. So, right? These are just fucking words, dude. I mean, the guy can tell you whatever the fuck he wants, and it's either you're going to believe him or not. I mean, I personally take the approach of being reasonable and believe, half of what you see, none of what you hear, and that sort of thing. For me, and I know Journey speaks to this a lot, and I love him for it, right? To me, proof of work became a very real thing once I understood the concept as far as the technology, right? It is, in its own right, it's an ethos. Like, you are the merit of the effort you put into life.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks a lot to what you kind of said earlier is like, like community and the marketing because Bitcoin doesn't have the marketing, but we have a community now. Can you speak about, because you talked about the army and how you do crime watch, got my Bitcoin army shirt on, of course, got to
I love
represent.
I love that shirt. It's so and how that happened, dude. Bring Facts is just he's just a dynamo of a human being, And I mean, his history before even joining the army. This is something that I really love, right? We have folks like me who just showed up at it. Like, I was living in a cardboard box, playing on a Commodore 64 till about, I'd say, 224, and then I just wandered into X, and here I am. And then you've got Bring Facts, who's like been to El Salvador, has a Bitcoin history, right? And he's just standing right next to us, one and all. And it's one of the things that I absolutely love about the community, because it's everybody. There's brand new folks like Stu who just showed up. And he actually won one of our giveaways, So he's, he's going to be mining. Whenever that gets shipped off to him, he's going to be a part of the network. He's going to be contributing to the hash rate. He's a member of the Bitcoin army. He's got a history all his. I mean, your history starts the day you join with the community, and it accumulates to legend status in a matter of weeks, I would say, or even sooner, to be honest. That's one of the things I love about this place.
No, same. First of all, you can be anonymous. And I think that really helps people to be able to be themselves because you don't need to. Bitcoin doesn't judge. It doesn't judge, your skin color, your religion, how much money you have, where you come from, your background. You can be a criminal, you can be a drug addict, you can be whatever in your past life. And when you come to Bitcoin, it changes you and it does actually, proof of work. It puts you into a better space, I think. And the community is more accepting. And it's like, you are who you are. Bitcoin doesn't care. It's for your enemies, it's for your friends, it's for everyone. And like you said, someone who's been in Bitcoin for, say 10 years versus someone who's been here for 6 months is like, you can build that Bitcoin status very, very quickly if you're, involved in the community. And but that also brings up like some Bitcoin sovereignty because people are very anonymous and people take that very personally. Can you speak about being a sovereign individual and how Bitcoin sovereignty can help?
So, I mean, I feel like, so when I think of sovereignty, right, outside of just Bitcoin, first of all, I think of like, you're, if you're the king of your castle, right, so to speak. And this used to be a concept that we, had, especially like in the 50s, a man's home is his castle, that kind of thing. But with that comes, right, comes accountability, personal responsibility. And I think I think when it comes to, um, the world at large, right, it's very, I mean, it's very clear that, like, there's two sides of it where, like, the actual system that runs on its own doesn't leave a lot of space for the folks running their own castle. I mean, you don't have to. You can let somebody else, hold the keys to your kingdom, right? And that makes it a lot easier. And that usually leads to, like, a nice little comfortable retirement in some place in Boca Raton, and like you're fine, right? I feel like the window of entry has shortened over time to the point where it's not a viable outcome for folks. And I think upon looking at that, it's like it's not even really a particularly great, just way to sort of wrap it all up at the end of your time, right? I feel personally we are capable of more. I think a lot of us, just at large, I think a lot of what's wrong with society is that we feel that we feel I want to say the guilt, the shame of not living up to our potential. A lot of us feel trapped. So, like, what's the use of, going that extra mile or doing the extra stuff? It's not going to get appreciated anyway, that sort of thing. Doing just enough to get by. I feel like that's the mentality that is permeated throughout society. And I don't feel that can run in tandem with sovereignty. I feel like there is especially with Bitcoin, because it sort of reintroduced, it's like a renaissance, right? To sovereignty. So I think it speaks to like a larger puzzle, like how we live individually does have an effect on all of us, whether we want to acknowledge it, accept it, or otherwise. So whether we understand it or not, your proof of work uh, is sort of added to the collective. So if it's not there, or if you're like, if you're not walking into a casino just strictly for recreation, which I mean, I feel is fine, right? If you're going into a casino and you're not the house and you're, looking to make ends meet, that's a problem. And it's not just a problem for you, it's a problem for your loved ones. And I think the more people that are doing that overall, the more of a problem it is for everyone overall. So when I think of like sovereignty, right, it is a mutual self-interest. It's one of the things I love about Bitcoin. It's not just you're out for yourself. It's because you are in a healthy way out for yourself. Fewer toes get stepped on. Everybody sort of pulls their own weight, and it all makes a lot more sense than it has been doing otherwise. I mean, you take a look at the world today, and just about everybody is fed up with one thing or another. I mean, it just bears consideration for me to say, hey, why don't we take a look at real sovereignty? Use this as a method of attaining that, learning how to protect it, learning how to secure it for your legacy, teaching the others in your immediate circle about it in a healthy way, so that when the legacy is passed on, it has somewhere to go instead of just dead ending, which is a thing you will see with things like nepotism, right? You passed on wealth, and a lot of times it's passed on wealth without tradition, without moralities, without an ethos. And I think that's where some of the trouble starts.
Okay. Yeah, no, you touched on a good point there is like as a community, I mean, it's like, individual proof of work, but then it all kind of comes together as like a better community for us because if none of us do the individual work, then, we don't really move forward as a community I mean, Bitcoin will run on its own no matter what. Like it doesn't need me individually, it doesn't need you individually, but as a whole, all
Yeah.
run.
So I think with that, the argument can be like, that's a topic where the argument can be misconstrued, right? You can, and this is what I mean when I talk about folks who are speaking from a position of bad faith. Anyone who seeks to denigrate and say that your contribution to Bitcoin doesn't matter. Let me try and find the right words here. That's a stupid asshole. You shouldn't listen to that fucking idiot. Sorry, I tried to quote that up, but I should do better. I need to do better. Michelle always says that I need to do, we all need to do better. No, but really, anyone who's trying to tell you that what you do doesn't matter is really a part of the same old machine, right? That's something that I reference a lot. Lockstep fiat slavery. It became a term that I really love because it's very easy to spot out. I can spot it in myself when I'm doing it, right? Like we are a part of this machine, and I don't mean to say it in a way of like that guy's just it's just an asshole. It's like, no, that person is caught in the grip of the thing that has been fucking us for decades, centuries even, right? We have a chance to break out of this. Stop letting people distract you with shiny new pennies. Stop letting people distract you and say that your sovereignty doesn't matter, that what you're running and how you run it doesn't make a difference. It does. That's the point. We are the guardians. We are the cyber hornets. We are the people who are tending the lighthouses individually and collectively. Will Bitcoin survive without me? Will it survive without you? Absolutely. Will it be better off with you and with me? Absolutely. The whole tape needs to be played in that conversation. And anybody who stops short of that last part is trying to sell you something or trying to get their way or trying to be right. Or I don't know, maybe somebody's going to give them a cookie when they're done saying what they're saying. I don't know how it works with them, but it is not there. It's not with your best interest in mind, and it's not with your sovereignty in mind.
Yeah, no, that was well said, and I agree. And to speak of those bad actors, dude, I mean, you pointed out like, it's kind of us versus them. And for me, when I hear us versus them or Bitcoiners, versus them, I picture like government, big government, whether it's like the World Economic Forum or just literally, the Republicans and Democrats of the United States. We both live here in America. So that's what I focus more on. I could really give a shit what like Iceland or like the UK is necessarily doing. I pay attention, but like for me, it's the United States. Can you speak about these bad actors? Like politics is a very interesting thing right now. It's a very up and down, left, right, like it's a fucking mess right now.
So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of satisfaction to be said, right? Or that I feel when I think of politics and in sort of the current scope, because I feel like a lot of the bad actors are having just as hard enough of a time drawing the lines as folks are on our end trying to read them and suss them all out. I feel like it's getting so convoluted that like, a lot of those they're running around like the fucking producers, like the old Mel Brooks film. You know what I mean? Like they're just trying to put the play on, and it's a complete fucking nightmare. And, it's all it's all a shell game anyway, right? But they're having just such a difficult time dressing up the pig and throwing it out on stage that like it's almost comical. You got a lot of like pro Bitcoin or pro cryptocurrency politicians, who will go in, championing, with the laser eyes, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get a Bitcoin reserve, and and then they come out, they come out of the machine a couple of days later, like, we're gonna get a crypto reserve. Like, what happened to the Bitcoin, bro? And it's just comical, but at the same time, it's a distraction. So yeah, it's just always be careful, always see it for what it is. Watch out for what they're doing with the day-to-day stuff, because when actual tragedies come through, you'll notice it's very similar. And I think that's where it becomes egregious. When something happens, like what happened to Charlie Kirk, um, and the positions that people take sort of immediately afterwards. They will express their heartfelt sentiment and then immediately tie it to an agenda. So I mean, these are things that I find like, as far as politics, like these are things that I can live without. These are things that I think that the world is better off without. But as long as there are bad incentives to be, there's a bad incentive vacuum, so to speak, right? And it will be filled. So you always have to sort of be on guard for how that affects you, as opposed to, whether or not you're going to ascribe to one thing or another.
Yeah. Well, and one thing we were kind of pointing out, which is before we started recording, was how we were kind of similar with I grew up, my dad has always been very right wing. He was a Republican, hardcore Republican his whole life. But I grew up in a different time and I went to very liberal schools. I went to very, very liberal college. Didn't realize it at the time. It's just kind of like, you don't pay attention to politics really when you're getting drunk every weekend and, you're only doing tests and then you're going to practice. I ran track, so like I had track practice. You don't care. You don't care about politics. Like literally 08, 09 was going on when I was a freshman in college. I had no idea that there was a big financial crisis going on. Just didn't care. But then I grew up and I switched. I went from being a liberal Democrat voter who hated Trump. His first term, 2016, I did not vote for him, so don't hold that over my head. I voted for Hillary Clinton, probably my worst admission, but I'm glad she didn't win. Hindsight, and now I've completely switched. I'm a Republican voter now. And I think I don't know, we were kind of talking about that before we started recording. And it was like, you felt the same way. And I feel like the left has just gone like so far off the deep end, I can't even relate to them anymore. I don't even know who they are anymore. And I don't even like to admit that I'm like, politically to the right or Republican because politics sucks and it's all lies and it's all games and it's all the root. I mean, the root of it all is money and the money's fucked. And so who cares what side you're on? And it drives me crazy. Dude, can you talk to me
Right.
about your opinion on this?
So, I mean, I feel, again, it's a casino game, and we're not the house. And there's no, but with but with politics, there's no way to be the house except for becoming a politician. And, and the slots there's not a lot of spaces to fill there. Right. I would encourage something I know Brandon Grant will speak on a bit. Change at a community level is really where you're going to see the most good being done. And the more of that happens, the more of a chance we have to sway things on a larger scale. Well, we don't get anywhere, you know what I mean? That's square one, and you can't get off the ground without that. So, I know Brandon is very passionate about that. I think it's one of the ways that we connect. And yeah, I mean, Brandon is a member of the Army. Sorry, I feel like I'm speaking in house, and this is actually meant to be,
Oh,
for
no, no,
everybody.
no. It's fine. A lot of the people we mentioned for anyone listening on like YouTube or Spotify, a lot of the people that he's mentioning are in the Bitcoin Army. It's a community on X. And so if you go into X, if you're on X and go in the Bitcoin Army community, you can find these people that all Killer B is talking
If
about.
you want to know who Brandon Grant is, then yeah, and you better want to know who Brandon Grant is. Yeah, join the Bitcoin Army. But thank you. So yeah, I mean, I so I, well, first of all, you are very brave to speak on what you speak on, right? I try and emulate that in a sense where like I have a history on X, right? I've been not a well-known one or anything, but I mean, I just one that exists, right? And I had kind of fought with this whole idea of wiping the slate clean, like I was never, like I didn't, join Twitter in 2010 or something, get rid of all the bad takes that I had, or that sort of thing. I kind of don't want to, right? I kind of want it to be there so that I, almost like proof of work, right? I'm not going to go hiding the Genesis block, because I want folks to understand that, that the ability to change your mind is uh, one of the very few liberties that we have as human beings. And other folks will try and, you know, stick you to the person you were in 2010. It's such idiocy. You know what I mean? Like that person is long gone. We're talking, damn near 16 years now, right? So I don't have any use for that other than to say, hey, remember when I was that jackass? Like for me, that's an important, that's an important landmark, right, to look back on. So I opted for. You can go and you can see when I was like, when I was like a raging Bernie bro, then when that man could do no wrong, right? In my head, he was just like, dude, we're gonna take back the system for the people. He purported to believe a lot of the things that I believe in, that the system is fucked up, that the people are getting screwed, and that we need to do something about it. And the only way we get there is by standing up together, right? He had a great message. I don't believe that he was the person that he says he is. I don't believe that he is now. I don't think he was then, right? But at the time, I knew the world was fucked up enough to buy into it. And I think that's what a lot of that's what a lot of bad actors will play on, right? I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Originally a New Yorker, so I get the less than friendly Trump sentiment to a degree that a lot of folks don't. When I was not a Trump supporter, I'm really not a Trump supporter, but I mean, when I wasn't very
Yeah.
adamantly, folks would misconstrue that. Well, you must like Hillary. Like, are you stupid? Because I don't, because I've known the character of Trump, throughout the years. I immediately like this other person who's also a scumbag. What are we doing here? What kind of conversations are we having? It's very lowbrow to me, to sort of, it's this or that. It's like, it's straw man, it's ad hominem, it's nonsense. I don't want to have these conversations. I feel not that they're beneath me or something. It's just like, how many times are we going to beat the dead horse of something that doesn't matter? How many times are we going to do this? If not this, then it's that, so they don't, I mean, it's very silly to me, right? I came from a household, I would say, where my family would, the voters in my family would vote with their wallet. All of this extra taxation is not a big thing, for people, right? So they're, if you're voting from from that standpoint, right, you're not going to care about all of the social aspect of things. Whereas Democrats will play on the social aspect of things and tell you that that's a reason why we need to keep, fueling money into the government so that we can pay for all of the unfortunate, conflicts going on here and there. But I mean, the Republicans still do it too. We're in we're in Ukraine, we're in Israel, we're in all these places where you guys need to solve your own problems. We need to stop doing that, right? So I mean, for me, I tend not to get super involved because most of the time all you're hearing is like, you're X if you don't Y, and that sort of thing. And that's why for me, politics is just a joke. I feel like unfortunately it's necessary. But again, until we start changing the scope of things at a more immediate surrounding level, we're never going to get to any kind of real world stage paradigm shifts. It's going to be the same thing over and over.
Well,
Because
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying it's going to be the same thing over and over because it can be, because they can do it, because they can get away with it, because there is no accountability. And we had the Doge thing.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, no, like Doge. Doge was in my head awesome because I was like, they're going to go in and they're going to wreck shit. And I was hoping it was going to be so glorious, and it was kind of a downfall. It was a big nothingness, but the one good thing I think it brought up was, depending on what news you watch or what, social media you get. For me, I was seeing, look at what Doge found. Look, all this money going to, transgender poetry in Uganda. Look at like this gay rally that they're supporting in Italy. And it was like all this weird shit but it was like 9 million, 40 million, 100 million. So yes, that's a lot of money, but out of 30 or $28 trillion or whatever we're in debt, like it's not that big. And so it kind of just went nowhere. It like fizzled out. And Elon quit. The whole Doge thing is gone. You never hear about it anymore. And I'm like, so we're just okay? We're just okay with paying taxes into this system that they're just fucking wasting our money like this?
And how often does it happen that you see some grandiose thing being brought up as if it's going to really shock the system, really change I mean, has Donald Trump really drained this swamp? I mean, realistically. Like, and that's the thing. Like, and I'm not trying to say that he's done nothing. And for folks who really believe that he's doing some good, I think that there's merit, right? I think that there's, but explore the actual evidence. Don't just come up with conjecture. Don't just give me like, we stopped folks at the border. Thanks, Donald Trump. Like, were border people not doing border responsibilities beforehand? Like, really? Because if that's the case, then that really speaks more to the folks who are at the border than it does to the president himself. Like, the president just like waved his hand and everybody just hopped to fucking, just
I
got
well,
in.
I don't think the border patrol could do anything under Biden. Like they were literally told to
So
stand down.
right. So, and this is what I'm talking about, right? How did it get to that point?
I
And in which case, what do we even have a border patrol for if they're not supposed to do anything? So we're paying for a border patrol that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
yes.
so fucking dizzying that I
It's
don't know.
frustrating. It's frustrating. And because things like this keep getting brought up, it's like almost every week, there's something new, or at least there was for a while, especially under Biden, which, I mean, like you said, Trump, he hasn't drained the swamp. I don't think he has at all. He's done a little bit. He's done okay with his, being president. I would much rather have Donald Trump than Kamala Harris because God knows where we would be.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like because you're not particularly thrilled about the progress, would that make you a Harris supporter? Like this is the kind of conversations that like I immediately my first thought is shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. What are you doing? Shut the fuck up. Knock it off, right? I don't like either of them. If I'm forced gun to the head and I have to make a choice, yeah, I want Trump in there, okay? Does that, I don't know, does that make you feel like, do you get an extra cookie because I admitted it? I don't really understand, like like why these conversations even happen. You have to be able to say you know, like the reason that I vote for any of it is because I take a look at like, if this person isn't in office, this person is going to be in office, and which one is the worst option? That's what your voting options are. And it's been that way for a very long time. Anybody who thinks that, like, oh, this is really going to turn all of politics around and we're really going to change it doesn't happen. It's not going to. Your options were filtered out to useless before before you even get to check up one box or another. It's just what's going to perpetuate the machine and cause the least amount of friction among the populace. Like, that's what you're voting on.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but before Trump got elected, dude, I have a lot of very liberal socialist friends from high school and college, like I said. And so I follow them on social media. And I just remember all the posts before, right before Trump was elected, as he's like, you're watching the polls, he's winning. And then all these people are posting, like, your women's rights are gone. All the women are going to get kicked out of the workforce because they're DEI hires. Like, if you're black, you're probably going to get fired. And it was like all this shit, like women's rights are gone. Like you're not gonna be able to drive anymore. I had someone tell me that like my wife was probably gonna get fired because she was probably a DEI hire. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man. we've we've come so far. What a
Yeah,
great
it's
comment to say
amazing.
to me.
I mean, and none of your friends from the past have been deported or in jail or anything like that?
No,
Amazing.
no. I
Oh,
know.
I thought I voted for a fascist. My God, I thought I was all right.
Are we in a dictatorship yet? I don't know. I'm still
Fuck-
waiting for it.
Fucking stupidity. It's again conjecture. It's just,
And I shouldn't
everything.
I shouldn't say they're my friends. They're acquaintances that I still
Oh yeah,
follow.
don't. So just in case we go full fascism, don't say to your friends you're going to the Hague.
No, but you brought up Charlie Kirk earlier, and it's funny because it's not funny. I shouldn't say that. It's ridiculous because when one side of the aisle calls you a Nazi for pretty much what you could say, argue 8 years straight, they've called Trump supporters and Trump a Nazi. And if you think that that's incorrect, feel free to go back and Google how many times the mainstream media and every Democrat politician has called Donald Trump a Nazi
Yeah,
and his
it's a
support.
very real thing. It's not something we all just made up, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
actually happened. It's been happening. It's if you are on the right, you are a neo-fascist Nazi, whatever, however many other things. You're all the bad things. So
Yeah. But it's just like, I feel like when one side of the aisle is constantly calling you that, and now the right do it to the left too, it's whatever. But it dehumanizes you. And so when someone like Charlie Kirk dies, that's why you see people celebrating because it's like kind of like one less. It's like he was like a front guy for the Trump campaign, and it's like he died. And so it's like we got him. Instead of like, dude, that was a husband. That was a father. That was a 31-year-old.
and that
And
was a
now you're
guy with his kids.
celebrating it.
his kids were running around in the tent, you know what I mean? His kids were at his events all the time. They were there that day. For any human being to celebrate that, I don't know how to. There's a disconnect there that is, I mean, to be honest, you can't help that. You have to, for yourself, for the safety of yourself and your children, you need to stay away from people like that because they do not value life the way it should be valued.
Well, yeah. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole all of a sudden that I went that far. But
We're in now, so here we go.
um no, I was gonna bring up because this is important because the road we're going down I think is actually very dangerous if people keep believing what these politicians tell you and they keep telling you that, they're looking out for your safety, they're looking out for your best interest. And it drives me insane when you hear this. And the UK is doing it right now with digital IDs, dude. And it's like they're they're literally selling you that like we're gonna be a better society once we have digital IDs because all the criminals are gonna be off the streets. We can track them. And I'm like, are you gonna really fall for this bullshit? Like, there's no fucking way. Like digital IDs, like that shit better not come to America.
Yeah, so something that I feel like we kind of always have, and I don't want to get doomer, right? But there is a sense of entitlement that can be taken too far to the point where it feels like invulnerability or immunity. And a lot of us will still have that like early on, that early 20s, like Superman, like nothing can touch me mentality. And it's a very stupid ethos to carry on into adult years. The danger is always there. I feel like, I mean, as a country, I feel like we're better guarded against it to a degree, but never think that it can't ever happen. You know, don't ever think that somebody who cannot fill that bad incentive vacuum won't. To turn things into, I mean, look at what they're trying to do with Bitcoin. Look at how people are trying to manipulate everything that they can in any way that they can. The death rattle of fiat and the death rattle of a world that works without proof of work is going to be a violent one. It's something that you can't just turn your eye to because it's going to affect everything around you. So, I think that the First Amendment is one of our most important amendments outside of the Second Amendment, obviously. I mean, they pretty much are, they go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned in the concept of sovereignty, right? To the right to say what you feel needs to be said, or the right to say what you believe, the right to assemble, um, in ways that you choose, the right to not assemble with things that you don't feel aligned with, the right to defend your person and property. These are things that are some of the most important things, not just in terms of Americans, right? Not just in terms of our country, but in terms of individual humanity. Because I mean, realistically, folks, if folks in our country really wanted to, they could take away rights. They could take away everything that you have. So you have to be real careful about letting certain things creep in. The digital ID thing is one of them. Anytime that you trade freedom for safety, you're losing. It's that simple.
I agree. I think it's really important that people finally start to understand that and start to wake up because eventually I do believe that people are going to try to bring digital IDs into America, whether it's, the next president or the one after that or the one after that. Eventually, it's going to get brought up and it's going to try and make its way in here. And I think if enough people at least understand the risk of that and what comes along with it, especially if you bring in CBDCs, because now they have, your ability, they track your travel and they track your money. And now you're a slave. You're completely, you're helpless at that point. And this is going to be a very open question and maybe kind of difficult to answer. How do we protect ourselves from this? And how do we use Bitcoin to protect ourselves from this?
So this will go beyond my scope, right? I think I can really only maybe if I'm lucky, I can set some kind of stage. What you really need to look into, I think, is Bitcoin that is not KYC is really your only I feel it's your only defense against either government controlled currency or government surveilled currency. At some point in time, folks that I think folks that are it's hard to say, right? If you know, if all of your Bitcoin is KYC, then it's really just under surveillance to a degree, right? How do you fight against that? Well, I mean, outside of like going rogue from the government, how do you fight? How do you fight against what the government wants? That's the core question, and it extends to anything. Um, I mean, if there are laws involved, you're probably going to have to break them. I mean, you know, and this it's not the best message to send across, but what do you do with an unjust law is really the question, right? That's it, and you can fill in the blanks. However, what do you do with this particular unjust law? What do you do with, well, first you have to be very, very sure, right, that you stand on your conviction. I feel like it's a lot of it is internalized, and I feel like the more people that reach that conclusion, that come together and say, hey, this is not okay, the better off that will be. But at some point in time, right, it's not so much that you want to live independent from the government, is that you would prefer that the government live independent from you, right? I have no problem playing by your rules, but if your rules are fucking unreasonable, what am I to do with that? And I think I feel like that's where it really, to the point where we really have to have more conversations in those regards, where we can't be waiting for one person necessarily to be an adult in the room. We all have to be the adults in the room. We all have to listen to all the angles of things and really come up with solutions. It's not going to happen on a world stage. Like, the solution to digital IDs is most likely not going to be solved on the world stage. It's going to be fought against, right? I mean, what is Europe's solution? What are they doing? They don't have the right to defend themselves. Canada, the same. If I think Journey's mentioned it a few times. If you Journeyman Bitcoin Army, follow the Bitcoin Army, join the Bitcoin Army. But he's mentioned it a lot, right? If an intruder breaks into your house, you better let him do what he does, as opposed to, it's nonsensical to me, right? Absolutely no way in hell am I going to let somebody walk into my garden and help themselves to my life. You will be met with resistance. It's that simple. And if you don't, I don't know. I mean, I can't, like, how do you, again, you can't help Europe, right? You can support Europe, say, hey, I hope you guys get through this, but there's a whole fucking reason we dumped a bunch of tea in the harbor years ago, because we didn't want to deal with this shit. You know what I mean? And it doesn't, but that's the thing. It doesn't exempt us. It doesn't keep us safe from it. It just, we put a line in the sand a while ago, and people still try to fucking cross it every day. So this is what I mean. If you give someone a reason, they will take it and look for more. You have to, like, boundaries have to be, they can't always be healthy. Sometimes they have to be very severe. Like, if you cross this line, you are fucked. There's no mincing words in that regard. Not, oh, you'll get a slap on the wrist. Oh, we don't do that here. It's not, not acceptable. It's no, the hammer comes down. And I feel like that's the approach that needs to be taken when it comes to, infringing on rights.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's one main reason why I went from being a Democrat to Republican, is because they all bent the knee as soon as COVID happened. That was like the biggest thing. And I've said that on here multiple times, and because it truly is that was like life changing for me, is watching people bend the knee to that scenario. And I was like, what the fuck? And now it's like, okay, yeah, how do we help Europe? I don't know. They're fucked. They got rid of their guns. They don't have free speech. So they're fucked. There's not much I can do for them. And I really hate it when people use school shootings and stuff to bring up, like, we need to get rid of guns. It's like, no, the fuck we don't.
It's
Because
nonsense.
no,
The gun thing,
the result. Yeah. No, the result of getting rid of guns is way worse than school shootings.
yeah, absolutely. The result of getting rid of guns is what's happening in Europe. And anybody who fails to draw that conclusion is just an idiot. I mean, I don't know what to say, right? Just not a smart human being. But, how do you explain it to them? The gun thing is the dumbest conversation I've ever had in real life. Just in the analog world, just the dumbest conversation from either side. It's so fucking dumb. The guns will not go anywhere. We have gun manufacturers. It is a whole sector, the defense sector. It's not going to lessen, not even with Bitcoin. I really hate to break it to everybody. I know it's a wild take or something, like if we, like the proof of weapons or the proof of violence network somehow disappears because we're all giving peace a chance or some shit. It's not going to happen. The incentives are going to change. Absolutely. And that will change the scope of things. It will change. What will it change into? It won't change into non existent concepts. That's what it won't change into. You know, the like Lockheed Martin, all the defense contractors, Smith and Wesson is not going to close up shop because Bitcoin is the global currency now or something. You know what I mean? Your handguns are still going to exist and we're still going to need them. So do not fool yourself into thinking that wars somehow disappear. They change. Right now we're going through, right now it's changing into a digital framework, right? It's been going through that shift for years, but I mean, it's getting more prevalent now. But violence is not going to not become a part of the human condition just because Bitcoin saved the day. It's just not, that's not life. That's not how it works. Like I love the idea, right? But it's a made for TV movie, dude. It's a pipe dream.
And with that said, let's let's switch to something maybe more positive.
Let's get, yeah, because, we're getting dark.
Yeah, yeah. No, that can get dark quick. And I just realized that I said that like, not having guns is worse than school shootings. Just for the record, school shootings absolutely awful.
But see, that's the thing. It's like, oh well, you just want school shootings to keep happening.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, you fucking dummy. That's what I want. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I
Like,
know.
come on.
Can we all agree that like
Oh,
it's
he
all
said
it's
that
all
he's
bad?
totally cool with with violence in the schoolyard. Like, no, I mean, like, a fist fight between kids, hashing it out. Actually, yeah, I'm for that. Let them, let the kids suss it out. But yeah, you bring weapons into the problem. Obviously, it's a big deal. But not wanting that is not the same as being anti-gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And not wanting to give up guns doesn't mean that I want to see children die in schools. And for somebody to draw that distinction, if that's the conclusion you reached, you're either stupid or dishonest. You're either trying to misrepresent what I'm saying, or you're just not intelligent enough to understand what I'm saying. And that's not a problem that I have to deal with other than your mouth flapping.
Okay. All right. So let's switch something to something more positive. We all say that, Bitcoin should or could be when/if it becomes the global reserve currency. How do you see that playing out? And like, how does that benefit us going from a fiat world where you're modern day slaves to potentially Bitcoin, kind of bringing us out of that where it's more of like a prosperous world? Where describe to me how you see us getting there and where that can, go for us. Because before this, we started recording, you were talking about, people going hungry and stuff. So I wanted to bring that up so you could maybe expand on that for me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a little. It might seem like a real softball kind of answer, right? But like, how does Bitcoin become global currency? I mean, so I feel like forcing it is just not the way, right? I think that's really my explanation, right? I think that it happens naturally, gradually, then suddenly, that sort of thing. I wouldn't say that it's a suddenly that as we understand it. It's not going to be just like we wake up one day and it's Christmas and Bitcoin is now, it's more like there's so much turmoil caused by the way things have constantly gone and it just becomes too much and something has to change. And I don't think that's going to be a comfortable thing for anyone. I think it will be more comfortable for some than others as the world tends to work, right? But I don't see it being an easy transition. I don't think that I think the evidence is pretty clear in this day and age that however it gets there is going to be a very bumpy ride. It looks a lot like the volatility, right? I feel like a lot of it you see these days, a lot of like the cycle changes you see are almost manipulated at this point. People are trying to sort of force the volatility instead of just letting it happen naturally. I think that that's not the best way. I think that I don't know that it stretches out the timeline. I can't really speak on that, but I don't think that it makes the timeline authentic outside of like just that we're fucking humans and the market is collectively a stupid fucking potato and we'll just do what it does, and that's really it, right? I feel like it would be interesting, what I mean, to see the changes over time. I'd like to see, I'd like to see a point in time, and we do see it sometimes, right? Where you'll see massive sell-offs and it won't touch the price. It just doesn't touch the price action. It bears no, no, it bears hardly a mark, if anything. It's more of a mark that nothing happened rather than something. So I feel like that's pretty telling. But yeah, I feel like, it'll be a gradual increase, right? I feel like the volatility is going to continue because people are going to continue to react with, with their own self-interest. I don't feel like it's always going to be mutual. Maybe it slowly, gravitates that way. And that's something I'd really like to see, it would be in my head, it would be nice to see, um, change in the world that looks a little bit more like harmony. It doesn't have to be pretty all the time, but it's not as I don't know, it's not as like the world just doesn't always become so diametrically opposed like at the drop of a hat. There's a little bit more reasoning involved in the day-to-day world. Those are the things that I see, right? The world changing into if we're ready for it. Bitcoin's like Bitcoin's like a fucking mogwai. You don't feed it after midnight. You don't fucking, you know what I mean? Like, learn how to fucking handle this shit, and maybe you'll be responsible enough to hang out with Gizmo. Otherwise, you're gonna get nothing but fucking shitcoins and gremlins.
Amazing. No, I think Bitcoin, something like that, will also help hold people accountable because when you can print unlimited money, I mean, there's no accountability. You can do whatever you want. And so I think that's, yeah, you kind of touched on that. But to end this and to kind of close out here, do you have anything else, first of all, that you wanted to talk about? And second of all, how do you see, I always got to ask this, especially because we're in a bull run. How do you see the rest of this year playing out, next 6, maybe 12 months, something like that? Feel free to say numbers or not say numbers, but
Okay. So what was the first one? So just let me. I've a little.
just if there's anything else you wanted to talk about really quick.
Okay. Hey, yeah. I tend to not focus on the self. Not, or at least I try not to. Anything I want to add? I don't know. Yeah, join the Bitcoin Army. Come hang out on Crime Watch if you find anything that that isn't right. Like I don't care. It could just be like, dude, I get somebody was just taking too long in the deli line today, and it just really pissed me off. You know what I mean? Like come and tell us what your crimes are, man. What crimes have been out there in the world. But I do like to facilitate conversations. I do like to sort of get to know folks, and the community is a big deal for me. So that would be the one thing I'd say. Hey, come join X, join the Bitcoin Army, come join the conversations. There's every night of the week. Sometimes multiple spaces a day. We're always trying to have more conversations. A lot of them tie into each other, and great things happen. So, come check us out. Right? That's if I have to say anything, there's so many other incredible minds that have sort of come into not existence, but come into like knowledge. Right? Like Vince, you're one of them. Right? You joined the Bitcoin Army, and now you're doing podcasts, and now you're getting to know. Now you're helping us get to know one another level, and I couldn't ask for more to be born out of this community. It brings me like real, like authentic joy. So I'm grateful to be here once again. I'm grateful that you're doing what you're doing. I'm grateful that the community is what the community is. So yeah, that's all I really would have to add, if anything.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate it. And then my last question is just any predictions, anything, any sentiment going forward? Are you feeling bullish? Are you feeling neutral? How are you feeling for the next 6 to 12 months?
So it's, the weird thing is because of Bitcoin, it's really changed my concept of bullish. Like in my head, for me, bullish is being able to accumulate more Satoshis at a cheaper fiat level, right? So I might not be bullish in the same way someone else is. I mean, it's nice to see the things that I've contributed to grow, right? I mean, that's in that regard. Like I'm still struggling with that sort of weird, like I have a very displaced time preference. I think that's the thing that, I mean, for me, it's something that I need to, work on reconciling is like, do I want this number go up or do I want it to stay down a little bit more? What makes more sense to me? What makes more is my, is that mutual self-interest or is that personal self-interest? I mean, there are other people obviously who want to accumulate more at this particular time, but there's also folks who are maybe waiting on retirement. So that next cycle jump could could kind of put them over the milestone, and maybe they can, maybe they don't have to sit in the fiat line so long that, for the next couple of years or whatever. Maybe
Yeah.
they can, maybe they can take those sick days without feeling, exuberantly guilty over it, or whatever sort of lockstep fiat slavery you're kind of stuck in at one point or another. Because we all are in some regards. Some of us are freer now, and it's fantastic. But we're all still circling the machine. If you're free of the machine, you're still living in the same time space as the machine. So it's not like it doesn't affect you. It just, you may not be as affected as others, but there's still, the price of tea in China is still what it is, regardless of whether can, have to pay for it or not. You may not even like tea. Who knows? But that, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, as far as predictions, end of the year, I feel like we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 150.
Okay.
I mean, and I mean, that's just me throwing a number out there just for sake of throwing a number out there. It's a guess. I don't have market data that kind of shows me other than the number goes up. So, if I'm going to make a prediction, the number will be up, or inverse. It won't be. It will, we'll hit that, you know what I mean? Because I don't necessarily conform to all of the cycle data because I haven't really lived it enough to say. And even then, I feel like a lot of folks who do that are sort of married to the experience and don't realize that the new experiences are not going to be the old experiences. History will rhyme, but it will not be identical. So, there's always that to look forward to. So I feel like, it will be higher at the end of the year. Will it stay there? Probably not.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate it. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate you coming on. I've enjoyed your conversation and sorry it took so long to get you
Oh,
on,
you don't know.
but
It's
I
also
really
on
do
my part,
appreciate it.
you know?
Oh, no, no, it's all good, man. But I do appreciate you coming on. This was fun. People, if you're listening, feel free, go follow Killer B on X if you want to see his thoughts and what he posts. Follow his spaces. He does a space every week. What day of the week is that one?
That's Wednesday night, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. So follow that if you guys want to talk anything Bitcoin or have any issues that you just want to vent and piss people off about and anything like that. It's a fun time. And follow the Bitcoin Army. Obviously, Killer B and I are part of the Bitcoin Army. And like and subscribe to this video if you like this content. And we will catch you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bitcoin broadcast. Peace.